Abu Ali is 84 years old. He's a member of the Zaweda, one of the main Bedouin tribes in the region of Wadi Rum in southern Jordan. He's here with his grandchildren to watch the race which takes place each year on the edge of the desert. He's seen hundreds of races. He's always loved them. But in recent years, the spectacle has left a bitter taste in his mouth. Where are the jockeys? Why are there so many cars? And there's so much dust.
They don't know how to train their camels. Look at that one. He's jumped the gun.
The old man is worried. Are the Bedouins abandoning their faithful camels? He knows that if that happens, it means the Bedouins are forgetting who they are.
Did your camel race well?
It was a good race. My camel won.
She had a good win. What's on that camel's back? It's a robot.
It's better than a jockey. It's safer.
It works with the remote control. That's how it operates. As soon as the race starts, we use the remote control to activate the whip.
So it whips the camel.
Yes, it's automatic.
So you control the camel with a remote control. May God give you strength.
2 years ago, Abu Ali's sons persuaded the old man to come and live near them in the village. He agreed because he's too old now to live alone in the desert. Others have done the same, and the soul of the Bedouin tribes has gradually left the desert. Like the jockeys whose role has been taken over by the robots, the desert traditions are slowly being lost. Abu Ali is determined that the Bedouins should not forget who they are and where they come from. Since coming to live in the village, he sees it as his duty to offer his precious wisdom to those who need advice. It's to support this kind of initiative and to preserve the ancient way of life that UNESCO decided in 2005 to protect the cultural and oral heritage of the Bedouins in the Wadi Rum and Petra regions. In keeping with tradition, important guests are welcomed with coffee. The first cup symbolizes welcome. The second celebrates the courage of the visitor, and the third is for pleasure. The partaking of coffee symbolizes the living bond, which once united the nomadic tribes. Accepting the first cup means you also agree to listen to your host's requests.
Abu Ali, don't you miss living in a tent now that you moved to the village?
My children are living here now, and they're building a house for me and my wife. We have to think of our grandchildren and their education.
Yes, but now you have television and electricity. You come to see us less often.
No, my friend. No, my friend. Bedouin culture will always be alive inside me.
Abu Ali, I asked to come and see you because one of my mares will be giving birth soon. I'd like you to be there to help me take care of the baby camel.
Don't worry. God willing, everything will be well.
Gently, gently.
In the desert, the birth of a camel is a major event. A symbol of wealth, the animal was for generations the nomads' only means of support and their only guarantee of survival.
أبو محمد اشرب اشرب يلا سنة انت لا هي الطيحات لابد منها بس ابعد هي الطيحات ابعد توكلوا على الله يلا. الحمد لله هالساعة خلصت بسلام يلا توكلوا يعطيكم العافية. الله يعافيك. الله يعطيكم هات اللبن هات الحليب يلا توكلوا على الله.
About 10 miles outside Wadi Rum is a vast labyrinth of pink sandstone rock faces. A small boy and his grandfather are making their way to one of Jordan's most prestigious sites. Rediscovered by Europeans in the early 19th century, after falling into decline over hundreds of years, this jewel of antiquity retains all its mystery and majesty. Petra, capital of the Nabateans. The astonishing beauty of the place is witness to the greatness of this lost civilization. Zed is 9 years old. He was born amongst these rocks. Today, it's time for him to discover the secrets of the city of stone.
Zed, take a good look. You see the circle up there? That was the symbol of the Nabateans. This is where they prayed to their gods. Almost 50 years ago, with other Bedouins, I helped to repair these columns.
You lived here?
Yes, I lived in a cave not far from here. It was a long time ago now.
Built at the end of the 8th century BC in the Shara Mountains, Petra's heyday was the 1st century AD. Most of the monumental buildings were hewn out of the rock at that time, as well as the vast amphitheatre with seating for more than 3,000 people. A commercial crossroads in the heart of the desert, on the incense trade route, the Nabatean city was a safe haven for the great camel caravans, which then crisscrossed the Middle East. Already weakened by the Roman occupation, the city was half destroyed by a series of violent earthquakes. The inhabitants gradually abandoned Petra to the jinns, the malevolent spirits who live in the desert. Classed as a World Heritage Site since 1985, Petra has become Jordan's biggest tourist attraction and welcomes several 100,000 visitors each year. The Bedouin may no longer live here, but the great majority of them come here every day to work. Zed belongs to the Bedu tribe and is a member of one of the few remaining families to live inside the archaeological site. He is still a child, but he knows that the Bedouins of Petra have found new ways of making a living, and he's keen to earn some money from the tourists. These visitors, modern-day nomads, have replaced the camel caravans of yesteryear and now provide the Bedouin with their main source of income. At their age, these little Bedouin boys can only offer donkey rides, without much success. The children know that their little donkeys only raise a smile. The tourists are here for the ships of the desert, the camels.
We need a camel. Camels are better. Yes, they're better. We have to change. The tourists don't want our donkeys. They want camels. They give milk too. When I'm big, I'll have lots of camels. You don't even know how to ride one. Yes, I do. No, you don't. Do so.
Petra's caves, natural or man-made, were first used as storehouses by nomadic traders. But the strategic potential of this natural fortress at the bottom of a protected valley was obvious. The nomads gradually adopted a more settled existence and began to build gigantic temples, magnificent tombs, and houses to live in which matched their growing prosperity. For Zed and his friends, some of these buildings have become simply their playground. Living in these caves is one thing, but what happens when they become historic monuments? In order to preserve the buildings, the government decided to rehome the cave-dwelling Bedouins outside the ancient city. Although most have accepted the modern houses they were given in the neighbouring village, a few families such as Zed's and Abu Lafi's still live in their ancestral caves. Sheltered from tourists and the modern world, the Bedouins live the simple and rugged life of their shepherd ancestors, in a setting that has barely changed.
Our ancestors have lived here for a very long time, and we continue living here in these caves today. Whilst we are here, whilst there are still Bedouins in Petra, the place will be protected. We are here day and night. We see everything that happens here. If a visitor does something unusual or gets lost, we can quickly inform the authorities. I like living here. These caves are extraordinary. They suit the desert climate. When it's cold outside, it's warm inside. And when it's hot in the dry season, it stays cool inside. It's even better than air conditioning.
The children are back. It hasn't been a good day for the budding tourist guides. Zed may not have got the hang of making money from tourism, but he's not completely lacking in skill. He proves to be a past master at getting much desired money out of his dad. Living in the caves means living far away from most things, including the village and the other families. There is a school there too. Zed's brother goes every day. He's the only child in the family who likes going to school. But his textbooks and exercise books don't fail to spark the curiosity of Zed and the other children in the family.
The teachers tell you things. They give you books and sometimes, apparently, they even give you money. Why don't you go to school? I prefer staying with the sheep. What about you? I stopped going. Why? I don't like it. I like feeding the animals, being outside and playing.
Zed doesn't like school. He doesn't see the point in learning things that aren't useful. He'd rather play, ride around on his donkey, live in the open air and learn from his grandfather. He likes being outside. Zed likes looking after the animals. He helps his mother tend the flocks. There's nothing he doesn't know about sheep and goats. When you live in the desert, that's much more important than knowing how to read and write. Zed is a real Bedouin. The natural world is his home. His knowledge has come down to him from his ancestors, passed on by his parents and grandparents. What he knows about Petra is being forgotten by the Bedouins of the village. He is the ancient city's living memory, and his wisdom cannot be learnt in a book. Life in the open air has its dangers too. There are poisonous beasts, hyenas, wolves, and evil spirits who share the abandoned city with its human inhabitants.
This is how you catch a scorpion. Their tail makes them very dangerous. When a woman has a baby, she mixes it in with the milk. First you have to burn it, and then you mix the ash in with the milk. That way the baby is protected. Look, he's trying to run away.
Zed no longer fears scorpions. He knows he's protected. As she did for him and his brothers a few years earlier, Zed's mother is today performing the ritual which will protect his youngest little sister from scorpion bites. In order to live in the natural world, you have to know its secrets, the power of plants and of certain animals. The Bedouins' settled way of life is leading them to forget their traditional medicine, which was handed down orally from generation to generation. Bedouin children learn by watching their elders. Once reduced to ash, the scorpion powder is applied directly to the breast, just around the nipple. Mixed with the mother's milk, it is believed to protect the child against the scorpion's fatal sting. Only the families still living near the desert continue these age-old customs. In the cities, where the imams hold sway, the Bedouins no longer practice their ancient traditions, which are considered incompatible with Islam. Whilst this isolation enables some families to keep their ancestral traditions alive, it is also a pitfall for Abu Lafi's family. He knows that down there in the village, the world is changing without them really noticing.
Why doesn't Zeg go to school?
We tried, but he didn't want to. He says it's too far away. When he went to school, he would get halfway and then turn back. It scares him.
We have to encourage him to try again.
We've tried everything. He doesn't want to. He never got used to it. He's scared to go on his own.
It's not right. He has to make an effort. When I was young, I walked 40 kilometers to get to school.
To be honest, Abu, he's been helping us since he stopped going to school. He looks after the flocks. He feeds the camels. He helps us a lot.
But education is more important than sheep these days.
He doesn't want to go. As soon as we send him to school, he comes straight back again. What's the point?
What sort of future is there today for a child like Zed? Abu Lafi would like to find a way to help his grandson. Maybe if he had a camel, he would become a good guide. After all, there are few children who know Petra as well as he does. In Wadi Rum, Abu Ali has returned, as promised, to see the baby camel born a few days ago.
Abu Ali, can you look at the dung? Is he all right?
It's fine. There's no problem.
It's a gift from God.
May God bless the owner of this camel.
For some time now, Abu Ali has been visiting the nomads more often. He misses the desert. Today, Abu Ali and his family have a visitor, Mrs. Al-Zaweda, the local head of Johud. This organization works alongside UNESCO to preserve the Bedouins' cultural heritage. She is visiting Abu Ali to gather information about the lives of the nomads. She knows the old man wants to pass on his knowledge, and she wants to suggest they work together.
Abu Ali, I work for the Hashemite Centre for Development. As you may know, our work is to keep people in touch with their traditions. There is an organisation working with us called UNESCO. We are interested in ancient cultures and traditions. That's why we are very interested in elderly people, because they have a lot of experience and can help preserve these traditions. We know from experience that children nowadays know little about Bedouin traditions. We would like to organise an event to show them how tents used to be made and how people lived in them.
They know nothing about the lives of their ancestors.
How to make coffee, how to make bread.
We could show them.
What would we need to organise that?
God willing, we are ready to help you.
I can provide the tent, thanks to the women who work in our centre.
We can bring water and wood.
The centre that Mrs. Al-Zaweda runs is also the village nursery school. Part of her job is to teach young Bedouin children about their rich cultural heritage. Today, they are learning about how their ancestors' vast tents were made. After the camel, the tent is the second most important element in nomad culture.
Do you know what the lady is making?
A tent.
What's it for?
For living in.
Do you know what it's made of?
Camel hair.
No, not camel hair.
Goat.
That's right, with goat hair. From the hair we make thread like that. Has anyone seen their grandmother do this?
I have. I've never seen it.
Do you know how long it takes to make a tent?
2 days? 2 months?
The biggest ones can be 15 meters long, and weaving them can take 6 months. Have you ever lived in a tent in winter?
Yes.
Does the rain come in?
Yes.
No, the tent is waterproof. Because when the threads get wet, they swell and press against each other, so that means the water can't get through. What's it like in summer? Have you been in one in summer?
Yes.
What was it like?
The air is cool.
Cool, yes. The sun can't get in. The air is cool.
Abu Lafi has made the journey from Petra to Wadi Rum. He's come to buy a camel for Zed. Camels from Wadi Rum have a good reputation. But to make sure he gets the right one, he's asked Abu Ali for advice.
I know this camel well. She comes from a good pedigree. She's a good beast.
Good. Good.
She's blessed by the gods. She won't betray you.
She's not aggressive?
I guarantee you.
When you put a saddle on her, you can have confidence in God. She will also give you milk.
What's the price?
She will cost you 1,500 dinars.
I can only pay 900.
A bit more.
No,
That's no good.
I'll give you 1,100.
It's not a good price. Pay more.
I'll give you 50 more.
More.
I'll buy her for 1,150.
Pay more.
I'll give you 200 more. I'll give you 1,350. And that's my final offer.
Okay. May God bless you.
هاي 1700 الله يبارك فيك بعدين احنا ودنا نشوف انا ودي
The deal is done. Abu Lafi will teach Zed to train the camel. Domesticated for the first time some 3,000 years ago, the dromedary was the foundation on which nomad society was built. Admirably suited to their natural environment, camels enabled the Bedouin not only to travel through the desert, but also to transport merchandise, and thus were vital to their economic and social development. An adult dromedary can carry up to 100 kilos and travel 40 kilometers a day. It can survive in the most arid terrain, survive without drinking for 3 weeks, and take in more than 200 liters of water in the space of 3 minutes. The dromedary also played an essential role in the Bedouin survival by supplying them with meat, milk, wool, and a unit of currency. Before taking the young camel back home, Abu Lafi will take it to an isolated spot where it will remain for several weeks until it gets used to its new master. Abu Lafi, whatever the impact of the modern world on his current lifestyle, nothing can destroy the fundamental bond between the Bedouin and their camels.
Zed, come here. I've bought you a camel. I want to teach you to train it. Zed, When the camel is less than a year old, we call it masas, which means that it still drinks its mother's milk. In the second year, we call it mafrud, because it has been separated from its mother. In the third year, we call it mabuf. That means you can harness it and lead it around and begin its training. Then in the fourth year, it's called rabah, and you can start to ride it. When you walk with a camel, if you meet someone who wants to talk to you, greet the person, but carry on walking. Never stop, because this will spoil the training. During the training, the camel will become used to you. If you abandon it, even for a moment, it will lose confidence in you, and you will have to start all over again from the beginning. That's it. Gently.
Each day, Zed has come to look after his camel, who now recognizes him as her master. The boy can now take the animal home. On the way, he won't stop to say hello to the neighbors or accept any invitations, as his grandfather told him. Zed has won the animal's confidence. He is ready now to mount the camel for the first time.
Yeah.
Go on up you get. That's it. Gently. Hold on there. Not like that. You don't hold on. If the camel is nervous, you can hold on. But if you feel comfortable, you can relax and let go.
She doesn't bite.
It can happen. If she meets another camel, for example. When you're ready, I'll take you up there, to the top of the mountain. We will spend a night at the shrine of the Prophet Aaron. Okay?
At Wadi Rum, Abu Ali's sons are preparing to leave. The tent, which the UNESCO representative has had woven for the occasion, is ready. The old Bedouin and some of his family will now go to meet the people whose heritage is under threat. The journey, which used to take several days on the back of a camel, now only takes a few hours. The wind, the call of the nomads. After 2 years spent in the village, Abu Ali has returned to his desert at last. Once at their destination, the men unload the heavy tent. First, they must find the best place to erect the tent. Flat ground, with a nice open view. The Bedouin call their tents Beit al-Sha'ar. It means house made from goat's hair, and underlines the special bond that exists between the nomads and their animals. News of the arrival of Abu Ali and his family spreads quickly throughout the cave dwellers of Petra. The setting up of the tent is an important event, accompanied by much excitement and high spirits. The families come to welcome their new neighbor. As in times of old, men, women and children, young and old, take part in erecting the tent and furnishing it. Abu Lafi is not far behind. For him, the event is even more important, as it reminds him of an era not so long ago in which the nomadic Bedouin would regularly come and set up camp next to Petra. It's also a reminder that during its golden age, the whole city was surrounded by tents and flocks. The tent is made of narrow bands of cloth sewn together. Only the worn-out strips are replaced over time. Making a whole tent is therefore quite rare. The women are in charge of making the tents and maintaining them, but the men take over when it comes to setting them up.
Move it forward. The bit he's got is too short.
The tent is around 6 meters in length, 3 meters in width, and 2 meters in height, so that it's possible to stand up inside. It is erected in order to face the east, so that it absorbs the heat of the rising sun, and is protected from the strong north winds. The operation requires precision and coordination. Abu Ali has many years of experience, and so he's supervising the work. Once erected, carpets are used to divide the tent into a number of rooms, from 2 to 7. Some rooms, which can be completely closed off, are used exclusively by men or by women. Others, which are open to the outside, are used to welcome guests. With the blood of the sacrificed goats, Abu Ali draws his family's emblem on one of the walls of the tent, which signals that the operation is complete. Now, it's time to start making the food. After the tent and the camels, the third foundation of Bedouin culture is hospitality. It is born from a vital need for cooperation. In the desert, a lone traveller is assured of protection by his hosts during the 3 days following his departure. Tradition has it that 3 days are needed for the body to digest the salt contained in the food offered to the traveller. 3 days also to find a new camp in which to shelter before reaching his final destination. That is how people survive in the desert, in the knowledge that beyond the mirage, in the shadow of the dunes, there will always be someone to welcome you. Hospitality is a duty for every Bedouin, an undertaking which binds every desert dweller through the covenant of salt.
My children tell me that now is the time for education, not the Bedouin way of life.
Yes, times are changing.
But do we have to forget our traditions? Abu Lafi, with our experience, we both know, for example, that camel milk protects us from many diseases, and that it's much better than any medicine.
Yes, it's better than all the vaccinations.
In the old days, in the springtime, the camels would feed on the medicinal plants in the desert. That's what made their milk so good for their health. These days, in the village, they feed them on nothing but bread or flour, and they keep them tied up all the time.
People don't look after the camels properly now. They shouldn't abandon our traditions.
Even if people are leaving the desert for the villages, some people still follow the traditions.
It's important not to forget traditions, because one day, maybe we will return to the Bedouin way of life. One day, we will break our chains.
For the old men's families, it's time to reconnect with the lives of their ancestors for a few days. For the children, it's a chance to learn about traditions, which are already several thousand years old. The celebratory feast, known as mansaf, is served with traditional bread, shrak, which is cooked over a curved metal plate. These traditions, which seemed doomed to disappear, are now being given a new breath of life. One of the unexpected consequences of tourism on the Bedouins' cultural heritage is an increased demand for camels. So camel breeders are again prospering. Tourists are keen to spend the night in the desert, which has encouraged some families to live in tents for part of the year. This new source of income is an incentive to return to their natural environment and to keep their traditions and their unique knowledge of the desert alive. Zed's initiation is almost complete. As agreed, he and his grandfather are ready to set off for Mount Aaron, Petra's highest peak. Only once he's reached the top will he be a true camel driver. Here, the journey to the temple is essential for anyone wishing to call himself a true Bedouin. The young Bedouin's destiny is bound to that of his camel. It's a ray of hope for Abu Lafi, who sees in Zed a desire to carry on his family's traditions. And the faithful ship of the desert has at last found its master.
زيد يلا يا زيد يلا
The journey they are undertaking today is the same as Moses took as he went in search of the Promised Land more than 3,000 years ago. It was on this mountain that Moses' brother Aaron is said to have died, Moses buried him in the small mausoleum perched on the summit, of which Abu Lafi is the guardian. The Prophet's tomb has been a place of Bedouin pilgrimage for centuries. Twice a year, the people of the caves, the nearby villages and camps, dressed in their finest clothes, came here to spend a day of peace, known as Zuwara. All forgot their differences and helped to build the Bedouin identity. Between horse races, the men recited poetry and sang their most beautiful ballads. Men and women danced to the strains of the traditional instrument, the rababa. When they reached the top, on the roof of the tomb, the sounds of the feasting could be heard in the valley below. Singing, music, laughter, and shouts of joy rose up from the tents, surrounded by many flocks.
Look how empty the landscape is now. Before, lots of Bedouin lived on the mountain. When I was your age, during the pilgrimage, everyone came here for the feast. There were horse races and camel races, but there's none of that now. Nowadays, people no longer gather here. Our era is about knowledge and teaching. They don't take the time to come here. Everyone runs after their own personal interests, and people would rather work in towns. This place was made for feasting and for getting together. Now you can stay here for several days without meeting anyone. It's empty.
None of that exists anymore, but the old people remember and tell their children. It seems that Zed does not want to forget what his grandfather is telling him. To be a Bedouin is to know how to adapt. Beyond the mirage, the world is transforming rapidly. But the foundations of Bedouin culture and identity are still strong and ready to withstand the winds of change.